I find myself today in Braamfontein at Constitution Hill, to be more specific, in what we are calling the I-Madiba space. It's an area where we're having macro conversations in micro spaces, and we're focusing on the issue of youth unemployment today. The reason we're doing that is because South Africa has the highest youth unemployment rate in the world. And of course, we're having all the important conversations about job creation, but do we actually know how to go about creating those jobs? Well, it looks like the solution will lie in small to medium enterprises. I'm about to pick the brain of 4 young entrepreneurs who've really made a go of it in this field, and they're going to share their ideas with us on how to put a dent in youth unemployment. Really great to be with all of you today. Thank you so much for making yourselves available. I want to look at some of the solutions that you as young people are working towards. Zuko, you've been dealing so much with the issue of technology, and you've been trying to create this platform for youngsters where they can bring their brilliant technology ideas and find an outlet for them. What's the caliber of ideas that is out there amongst youngsters right now?
So with the caliber of ideas, especially in the context of South Africa, I've realized that the entrepreneurs don't create South African solutions for South African problems. I think there's always huge world trends that people try to follow. And I think that's really a mistake that we make as South African tech entrepreneurs. We have a very unique ecosystem in the way we travel, in the way we eat, engage, in the way we live our lives as South Africans. So if entrepreneurs can just focus on those key elements and problem solve for that, I think we would have greater solutions coming out instead of them trying to mimic a Facebook or an Uber, but now try to think, what can I do as a South African for South Africa?
So when we go to high schools, which is the market we work with, we say to them, what problem is in your community? And we make very simple examples about how when your antenna, something is wrong with your antenna at home and your TV starts to distort, that becomes your problem. So what you do is you get outside and someone must move it. That's when you're starting to experiment. That's when you're starting to create, because you're moving the antenna until it gets to a point where somebody must validate your troubleshooting and say, yes, that works. And then that becomes the solution to the problem that you're sitting with as a child. But when I say to children, look broader now. Look into your community and tell me what problems there are. And this is the research methodology tool that you're going to use. After they've done that, they're able to articulate, this is my problem, I understand my problem, my neighbor also has this problem. In fact, my whole community has this problem. Then we say to them, now that you've created the solution, how do you then create a business model around it? What is the user case here? Who's going to buy it? How are you going to sell it to them? How are you going to reach them? How are you going to package this thing that you're saying you're going to sell to these people? From there, then they're able to create more concise and more feasible, more sustainable solutions.
South Africa is conducive for social entrepreneurship because we have all these problems that we face as a country. You look at Alex, you look at many other areas. But if we can think creatively on how and what solutions we can bring to the table, that's when we're going to be creative and not come up with Facebook, but come up with Alexandra solution, come up with my small town Gingindlovu solution, because that's what we need in the country. And not everyone is going to be that unicorn that's going to be so successful, everyone will be talking about it. But everyone can make a difference.
It comes back obviously to the education system. Very importantly, as mentioned by President Cyril Ramaphosa in the SONA, is that now coding and design thinking is going to be implemented from primary school. And these are very, not even foresight or futuristic thinking. It's a need at this point in time. So I get a lot of people that approach me with ideas and say, please, I'll give you half the equity if you can just get someone to code this thing for me, because I've got a brilliant idea, but I can't express that idea simply because I don't have the skills nurtured in me and actually taught.
To be honest, my career didn't exist 10 years ago. When I went to varsity and I was doing mechanical engineering, we were being taught, first of all, I do agree with changing the curriculum, because we're taught, for instance, in how we design, we use a standard called ISO 7330, which is based on white European males, which is why a lot of the times in South Africa, people are freezing in their offices. Because, and it's a small thing, it's very small, but that's how I was taught as a mechanical engineer. And so when I then graduated and I started to focus on green buildings, and that was only because of international exposure with an international multinational firm, that's when I started to ask questions about a lot of the things that we've been taught, because we're also not taught to design with sustainability in mind.
Yes.
We're not taught to digitize solutions. We're not taught these things. And so what I would say is that we do need to turn the system upside down. And I think that the more we start focusing on how do we contextualize our corporate society, how do we solve problems that are specific to South Africa, like what Zuko said, I think that's when we're going to start finding more solutions and more job opportunities.
So it's all about like reconfiguring our education system without necessarily cutting out a lot, but just changing things slightly so that people can benefit from it.
I definitely think that just a lot more training on how to run a business, and even at a young age, running parallel with your normal high school maths and science. I mean, I've never used Pythagoras, but I definitely am still like, there's stuff that I wish that I had learned, that I haven't learned, and that I'm still learning, and I'm going online and I'm figuring it out.
First of all, Thulile, we're raising kids in a country where they tend to believe they're going to grow up and work for somebody else. They are not necessarily in that entrepreneurial mindset yet. They're not necessarily being encouraged to express the creativity required to think of an idea that may be the subject of a business. How do we go about changing that mindset in young children?
So when we started Nka'Thuto Propeller as researchers, we understood that we were running a longitudinal study about the conditioning of the mindset of an individual to be tuned towards entrepreneurship. The results of which we've been running for 3 years. So we've got our first cohort of kids that are out of high school, and we can see them going into careers specifically to develop products for entrepreneurship. So we can condition the mind. When they start in the program, they are high school kids doing a science project. But by the time they've reached the end of the whole program, which runs for a year, they are entrepreneurs.
Looking at some of the case studies I've seen in different spaces, where there's such a thing called a tech campus, trying to rather bring stakeholders closer together and actually in a physical geographic space where they can access each other a lot simpler. So I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're always looking for someone to invest in you, you're always looking for someone to help you to go to market. And if they were all under one roof, it would be a lot more simpler. So I think the solution is not to change or burn down UCT, but maybe build a new institution where everybody actually coexists. And then, Vere builds, I support in terms of taking it to market. And we've created one big family in a sense.
School doesn't teach us how to negotiate, but we negotiate every day. As soon as you step out of high school, you negotiate every day, but we're not taught negotiating. We're not taught how to listen to what another person wants. So those are the kind of life skills as well that we need to have, ought to have, that impede our growth and the rate at which we can get these technologies that are relevant and fit for purpose into the market. So the ecosystems, that's what we need.
Fantastic speaking to all of you. Thank you so much for your time. Thulile, Zuko, Vere and Gugu. Lovely picking your brains. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thanks, Joanne.